This episode is sponsored by Sir Lancelot LLC, also known as SLA Capital, which, if you didn't know, is Dan and I's private lending company. So yes, we are sponsoring our own show, but what you going to do about it? It is our private lending company that offers hard money and DSCR loans to real estate investors of all types. So you can be a new investor, an experienced investor. You can be buying flips. You can be buying rentals, whatever. We can do everything. And not only that, but the rates that we offer are just as competitive, if not cheaper, than pretty much every other company out there. So whatever big company you've been working with, bring us their term sheets and I guarantee you that we can probably beat it. We have the same connections they do. We just don't have all the overhead and middlemen. So if you want to come and check us out, go to slacapital.com/keys and I will know that you came from the show. And by seeing that you came from here, when you get to closing, you will save $500 on your first loan with us. So slacapital.com/keys, we would love to fund your next deal.
There's no magic. Hey, ask this question and this will get you the contract. It's really a lot of grit. It's so much harder than all the gurus make it out to be overall.
I think that California might be the home to potentially the next president of the United States, Dylan. So you better get used to it. He's gonna.
You think Newsom? You think that's the next president?
I do. I bet he will be the nominee. Whether or not he'll be the next president, I don't know, because who knows what the actual country sort of like views. Because I feel like California is like the big bad brother of so many places in the country, right? They're always like, oh, people from California moving here. Like it's always kind of like the Democratic everything, even though it's an economic financial powerhouse, right? But I bet that he'll be nominated though. I would be surprised if he wasn't. What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. Don't worry, we're not talking about politics today. We're just wrapping up a pre-show conversation there. I am Mike DeHaan here with my co-host Dylan Cook, and we have a guest today, Alex Braich, out of California. Alex is a scale member, and you're somebody that has been building your wholesaling flipping business out in Cali for a little while. And I thought you'd be a fun one to have on the show today because you are somebody that is newer to the space over the past couple of years. And what I thought would be a fun conversation would be to talk about what you are kind of seeing with the struggles, the trends, what gurus are trying to pitch to you out there that's working and what's not, because you're the total target for all the real estate gurus right now. And just have like some grounded reality conversation around building a wholesaling and flipping business in 24, 25 has been your main focus, right? Which is such a different time than when Dan, myself, and Dylan got started back in 2020, 2021, because the industry's changed, the housing market has changed, the economy's changed. And so you're just kind of going through it, the different experience than we are. So anyways, man, thanks for hopping on the show with us. You want to give a really quick intro, kind of your background and what you're working on out there?
Yeah. So we've been in the business for about a year and a half, ultimately. We started with scale, direct mail, everything like that. We recently pivoted to cold calling a bit more. And that's been super helpful. We're out here in the Bay Area, so we do every part of the Bay Area. Me and my wife started the business together. And then as we switched away from direct mail, she kind of went to just more paying the bills and making sure the lights are staying on here versus having a fully active part of the business, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But she used to just love being on the seller calls, dude. I remember when you guys came out to KeysCon and that was like her favorite thing. When we did like the calling roulette, hadn't she like never talked to a seller before?
Not once. Yeah. She was the data, let me do all the back end stuff. And I was the personality, talk to sellers, go on appointments, everything like that. So she wanted no part of it.
Yeah, dude. So I guess with that, what you're working out there, so you shifted to the cold calling away from the direct mail. I know you've kind of tried a handful of different things. In your opinion right now, what do you think is the most challenging piece of trying to start and build this business in the modern era of this industry?
Yeah. So I think you kind of hit it pretty hard. YouTube, Instagram, everything's targeting me, the person starting the business that, hey, you don't have all the systems. You don't have all this. Like, the deal is going to be so easy to get. You should be closing them in one phone call kind of thing. And it's all bullshit. It really is. Like learning from you guys, like just throughout the last year, it's all in the follow-up. It's all in there's no magic script. There's no magic, hey, ask this question and this will get you the contract. It's really a lot of grit. It's so much harder than all the gurus make it out to be overall, you know? And I've heard you say it before, like it's a relatively simple business, but it's still hard overall. Mm-hmm. And that's what everyone's trying to sell. It's like, hey, it's an easy, get rich quick scheme overall.
One thing I want to emphasize what you just said, Alex, is a lot of them pitch. You said, I've heard you guys, say this before and it's been true, but you've also learned that from your own experience. Now that you've been in it a year, you've done some of the marketing, the phone does ring every once in a while, like pretty consistently, but it doesn't mean that you're going to lock up deals. Right. And all of the lists that pull are pretty much the same. The cold call list, there is no special anything when it comes to this business. But I do want to ask, when you first got started versus now, is there anything that you changed that you found out that does work in today's market?
Yeah. So we started with direct mail, and that was our start with everything else. And this might be controversial with what you guys have to say, because I know you guys are heavy on direct mail. You guys have had a lot of success. We haven't had the same success with direct mail that we have had with cold calling at this point, and even cold calling myself. And I think a lot of it was I just was not getting the reps in that I needed to be getting in going from a physical therapist, going to basically a sales and marketing job, essentially. I didn't know how much of a sales and marketing business it was moving into it, right? I didn't have to sell physical therapy for the most part. People were coming into me. They're like, hey, I'm hurting. What do I need to do? And yes, I needed to advocate and tell them, hey, this is why we're doing these things. But it's nowhere near sales and marketing that I'm doing for our business right now, right?
Yeah.
And so switching away from direct mail and going into cold calling, that really gave me the reps, because I'm getting a ton more reps every day, and they're so low cost as well. So if I mess up, I'm not burning $300, $200, $400 on a direct mail lead overall,
For sure. I will say that it is something that I have pivoted on when I talk to new people around what my typical guidance for them is, especially if they don't have a lot of money or they don't have that experience, is I almost always tell people to either cold call yourself, even though it sucks, because you're going to get used to being told no and to be doing the monotony of talking to sellers, right? Or hire a cold calling company if you're willing to do that, because you're going to be getting those cheap reps. And then I think the new challenge that comes from that is you kind of get the opposite problem of direct mail, whereas direct mail, you don't necessarily have enough lead flow. Your cost per conversation is pretty high. When it comes to the cold calling, your cost per conversation is low, but the quality also tends to be very low, right? And so what happens is people tend to get very discouraged very, very early, because they're having hundreds and hundreds, if not more, conversations, and it isn't really going anywhere. And so there's always like a give or take, right? And I think the crux of how I typically tell people to approach this is like, if you don't have money, you're going to need to be willing to put in a lot of time, right? And if you don't have a lot of time, you're going to have to spend money. But of course, most people come in and they don't have any time, they don't have any money, and they want like a magic pill, which is where the Instagram gurus come in and offer some pay-per lead bullshit service or some like done for you whatever that just doesn't make any sense at all. And so I guess with that being said, if you're looking at your cold calling, so you start doing it yourself, you hired a company that does it for you. Are you completely done with every other kind of marketing right now?
I am. Yeah.
Like mixing it in, and that's just like your primary.
Yeah, no, we're just cold calling at this point. Yeah, we stopped direct mail a few months ago. Gosh, it's been like 6 months ago. And we still have leads that we're following up with. Don't get me wrong. So those are still in the pipeline for sure. And a lot of my follow-up still. But cold calling is kind of filling the pipeline right now. But yeah, I agree. There's a lot of useless conversations in there as well that you need to get really good at disqualifying people overall, and just trying to make sure, hey, I'm focusing on the ones that actually there seems to be some motivation, but maybe it's not going to be I sell my house today. It might be 3, 6, 9 months down the road.
Well, and for the audience, I don't know if he said this or not. Alex is in the California area. So it is probably a more competitive market, definitely a higher price point than what I'm compared to. So there might be fewer deals, but those deals that you do get should be higher in revenue. And one thing I think I've seen you do well, Alex, just from talking to you and being on social media, is like almost getting the dispo side down before you even have the deals, talking to the buyers, seeing what they want, and really connecting with the people who are going to be on the back end of that transaction when the time comes.
Yeah, totally, man. I think that's how I kind of frame the business at this point right now. I don't have a construction background. I barely know anything about real estate. I know enough at this point after doing it, so many transactions and everything like that. But in terms of construction costs, I really don't have a big clue. So rather than try to make up a price in my head, I'd rather find a few buyers I could trust, run it by them, and kind of figure out where they would need to be. And that just makes the conversation with the seller so much easier because I'm not second guessing myself overall of like, oh, is this a great deal? Is this not a great deal? Yeah, it makes dispo so much easier for sure because I know exactly where they need it at ultimately, you know?
Yeah. How often have you run into sellers that have never talked to another home buying company?
I don't think I have. They're all talking to someone.
Exactly. That's one of the biggest things right now that's so different from like several years ago is we talked about this thing on the hot takes episode that we did a couple of weeks ago is that every single seller has talked to somebody at this point, right? Whether it's like currently or it's in the past, like they're familiar with the concept of a home buying company. They've already been lowballed by other people. Even if they are motivated, right? They're already like defensive right out of the gates. Cause like, believe it or not, dude, if you go back in time, you used to be able to just like send people a letter. And this is why response rates and stuff were so high. And they'd be like, oh, apparently you want to buy my house. I'm not sure why. That place is a piece of shit. Right. And then you go walk in like, it is a piece of shit. Do you want to sell it to me for 50% off? And they would go, howdy doody. That sounds great. Sure. And they would just sign the contract. You're like, this is awesome. And that's when Dan and I started. But before that, it was even easier, right? Like I have a good buddy here who was doing this in 2017, 2018. And literally he said, last time I saw him, I haven't seen him for years. Last time I saw him, he said that they had a SMS like auto texter that they were using. And their total monthly spend was like $4,000, right? And they were getting 2 to 3 deals a week off of that. So their cost per deal was like nothing. He's like, you said they were just raking in like $150,000 a month just by texting people. And like, they would text people like, do you want to sell your house? And they would say, yeah, sure. And they would go and they would just, you know, wholesale it to whoever and make these $10,000 to $15,000 rips. And it just cost them nothing. Right. But that's way before people were familiar with the industry, before all like the social media stuff really blew up. But now it's like impossible because like also too, all the different methods for lead generation, a lot of them don't even exist. You can't do the ringless voicemails anymore. You can't do the SMS blasts. Cold calling is getting more heavily regulated all the time. A lot of like the pay-per-lead stuff doesn't work anymore. If you're going to run any online ads, the problem is like the big companies have come in and made that so unbelievably expensive.
I know someone spending $100,000 a month just on PPC. And like,
yeah,
it's almost like it's a break even for them. But like their thought process is, as long as no one else is at the top, it's worth it for us.
Totally. Yeah. And they're not wrong, right?
Yeah,
they just basically outbid everybody. And to make it worse, you just have so much like bad information that's being spewed out there by everyone.
Well, and there's a reason that all of these people are switching to education because they can't do these deals themselves.
Yeah.
And it's slowed down from what it was been. So like, we need another way to make money. And then like, this is their answer. Like, I'll just sell content.
Hell yeah, dude. If you can't do, teach, right? So the funny thing about that is too, is that the biggest red flag is when I would say like the higher production value that they are with their content, you know, the worse that their actual real estate business is, right? If it's a dude that's like, I don't know, just like filming a selfie walk in a property, they're actually probably doing okay. It's when they have like the camera crews, they have the editing, they have the transitions, they have all that sort of stuff that it gets real bad.
I'd say the one caveat to that would be Dossie.
For sure.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, Dossie. But even then, like he himself isn't doing that many deals, right?
No, he's not.
Like his company's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like most of the personalities at this point are getting in trouble too. Like I'm seeing some notice of defaults. I'm not going to name names or anything like that.
Blast him. Let's do it.
I'm going to do it, man.
Yeah, no, do it. I think his downfall is pretty well known amongst a lot of people.
Okay. Yeah. So I pull notice of defaults from our county out here, man. And one of the biggest names in Bigger Pockets, David Green, his name's up on the notice of default. Pulling his property, going to cold call him later and see if he wants to sell his property later. Sometime in the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
But you're seeing some of these big personalities really, their downfall.
Oh, totally, dude. I mean, that Brandon Turner, obviously, is his whole collapse of all of his syndication with the open door stuff is a big, well-known one. There's been several like class action things that have come out with different people. I feel like your market is like ripe for it, Dylan. Have you had like 3 or 4 that were like big names that have been sued or even found guilty, like indicted for like pretty major fraud over there?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it too is not even like the people that we'd recognize, but
yeah,
international stuff. Like honestly, like this is not to point out any such country, but there's a lot of Israeli like money that was over here that was very fraudulently done.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just goes to show the amount of, I guess, excess froth that was in the system.
Oh, yeah.
And there is some of personal vindication where I see some of these deals and I'm like, how the hell are they paying these prices from these things? And now like it's just coming home to roost where I'm like, I almost feel vindicated. I'm like, okay, I thought they were dumb and they were dumb.
For sure. And it just validates. And hindsight's always 2020. But like when you look back and you knew from day one that you were right, it always just feels so good. Yeah. And then also too, you're like, I don't understand how they didn't see that. I remember going back to 21 and like the early collecting keys shows where Dan and I would talk about like the multifamily stuff these people were doing. And I was like, it does not fundamentally make sense. All these like syndications that are trying to do value add on value add on value add. And then we joined GoBundance and we're going to these meetups and there's a dude that's like 24 that's worth $2 million because they work at Netflix and they make $600,000 a year and they bought a bunch of crypto and they don't do fucking anything, right? And they're like, I'm going to syndicate 55 unit apartment complexes. I'm like, are you? Like, there's no way you're successful. Like, it doesn't make any fundamental sense. And then sure enough, when they all go crashing down, what's shocking to me is on top of those, of course they failed, is there's people that are smart that actually gave them money. And I'm like, why are you that stupid? Did you just like want to believe in the dream or the kiddo? Was it FOMO or what was that, man? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, and some of it from personal experience, when I first got started, I was like, Alex, I didn't know shit about real estate. Yeah. I didn't know shit about construction. And so, yeah, I guess I can understand numbers a little bit. Like I have an, advanced degree, but I was just like, you second guessed a lot of your own underwriting. You second guessed a lot of your own opinions and tactics. And then to see that they're like, okay, I wasn't as crazy as I thought. And as time goes, you get your own, Hermosi's good at this saying, what is it? Basically create enough work that you can prove your own confidence. I butchered that, but something along those lines.
Yeah. So you started this business, Dylan, in 21. When did you actually start like studying real estate?
So to make it short, I bought my first like house hack before I even knew what house hacking was in 2018.
Okay.
And then I bought another duplex with a pharmacist friend of mine where we just did 25% down. That was off the MLS, right? And we bought it for 90 grand. So like, even if it went under, we could still afford it, right? With our own W-2s. And then I guess I just kept studying real estate between that time in 2018 all the way till 2021 when I actually left my job. We sold everything. And then I left my pharmacist job in November of 2021. Didn't do my first deal until April of 2022. So literally like 4 years ago is when I left my job.
Yeah. Nice. That's awesome. But you were educated enough that you could like, stuff wouldn't pass the sniff test with you just because it didn't sound right.
Yes, exactly.
Because I'm similar. Because I started getting on like the bigger pockets train in 2017, bought my first properties in 2018. And anyone that knows me personally, that when I get into something, I'm like all in on it.
I'm the similar personality.
It's my personality. And so I was consuming everything real estate, all the podcasts, all the books. Like I have a whole like box of books that are just real estate books that I read. And that's all I was doing for a long time. And so then when all like the fads started popping up in 2020 and 2021, it was so easy to just be like, this just doesn't fundamentally make sense. But the problem is over like a longer time horizon, when stuff like that sticks around for several years, after a while you go, did it make sense? And I just like didn't understand it. And then finally when it catches on fire, you're like, oh no, I was right. It was stupid.
To that point, not to like see this conversation a different way, but I also read all those same books. I read all the Bigger Pockets books. I read some Ken McElroy books. I digested all the podcasts. What I'm getting at is more long form content. You had to sit down, learn it, study it, maybe make examples in your own notebook. Now I feel like people just get the clips, the 7-minute Vine clips of how to make money on an Airbnb. It's income minus your mortgage, and that's your cash flow. And it's like the content that goes out there is so trash now. And this, I don't know, it's not doing anyone any favors.
For sure, man. I mean, I remember back in 2018, after I'd left my job, I was working at the CrossFit gym was my main thing. And I was like that weirdo dude. I would go in and I would be doing like a, squat deadlift session. So it's relatively long. And I would just be listening to like Bigger Pockets, like financial podcasts. And that's what I would do. So I was always just consuming content constantly. And when you do stuff like that, you start to hear parallels, you start to hear things. And I would say that when you listen to enough longer form content like that, it is harder for people to sell you bullshit because there's more room for them to leave gaps, right, in their story if things aren't correct. And there's also less chance for them to edit it on on an average basis for the average person. But
and now you can have a conversation within 2 minutes. You know if they're full of shit or not.
totally, dude. Like just based off their vibe alone. Like Alex here, look at him. He's obviously full of shit. You just sit over there with deer in the headlights with me and Dylan talk.
I'm like, what was real estate like?
Yeah, no, we're contrary for that. So like when you started learning stuff, I know you came through the collecting keys train, right? You ran a mastermind beforehand.
I was, yeah. So
where have you found your education and stuff from?
I think being in the trenches at this point. I did hear the long form content, would listen to Bigger Pockets, all that good stuff, but it's more the kind of doing and failing over and over again. That's kind of given me the best lesson so far. Like getting some under contract too high and like, oh crap. All right. I messed that up. So let's ask for a price reduction. Oh, that didn't work out. All right. We're out of contract for this. Just learning by asking for help too. I have no shame in asking for help or letting people know I don't know what I'm doing in this sense. Help me overall, That's probably been the most helpful.
Yeah. Even like before that though.
Oh, gotcha.
Like before you started, like you made the decision to do your own business when you were in like that other group and different stuff.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was a lot of Bigger Pockets at that point too, so listening to Bigger Pockets, I was in the other group and they were more focused towards long-term rentals, now more syndication, it seems like, everything like that. And so I did have a coach at that time and, that was super helpful, just having the one-on-one, someone who's done it before kind of teaching you. But before real estate, I always wanted to get into real estate, but I just didn't know how. I didn't know anyone doing it until I went to like a bachelor party actually. And my buddy who was getting married, he introduced me to another guy that was in that mastermind who did real estate and was doing real estate investing. And that's when I started just consuming everything I could because I was heavy into stocks, maxing out my 401k, my IRA, Bitcoin, everything like that. And one thing I didn't have my hands in was real estate. And it just seemed too tough to get into, or that at least I thought so at that time. It seemed like a big cloud. Like, oh man, I thought I had to put all this money down for a property. I thought I needed to have all this money, who would sell to me at a discount or anything like that. And then seeing you guys do it, I think that kind of turned on the light bulb of just getting around people who are doing stuff that you want to be doing. I think that's where the light bulb kind of went on overall. I would say so, at least. Getting in the right rooms.
I think anyone who understands math eventually leads to real estate.
For sure.
Because of the leverage aspect. That's the number one thing. You can't control $100 worth of Apple stock for $20, but you can control real estate.
Totally, dude. This is always like one of the biggest giveaways when someone doesn't know shit about real estate is when they post or they reshare these things that are like, if you bought a house in the Bay Area in 2015 for $1 million, it'd be worth $2.5 million. And I was like, if you bought it in Apple stock, it'd be worth $7 million. I'm like, yeah, but that person didn't buy that house for cash.
Yeah,
they probably bought it with probably honestly like a 5% down loan and they had to make payments and everything on it. But then what actually happened is their $50,000 or $100,000 they put down on that house grew to $1.5 million in equity, right?
Exactly.
That's a much larger return than your $1 million that you had to park, that you had to go through the fluctuations of the market that you had no control over. Was Steve Cook, whatever the hell's Tim Cook's that the guy's CEO. You're like messaging him to make sure that he's taking care of your money over there, right? So he's going to be bumping that stock up for you so that you get the 7x return over 15 years. Like the leverage piece is, I would say, the hardest one for people to grasp. But you're right. If they understand math at a basic level, that's what makes real estate ultimately a no-brainer from an investment return standpoint.
Yeah, that's how I got started. It's just like I wanted to be wealthy. I wanted to have financial freedom. And that's why the pitch of the $5,000 a month rentals were the first draw until you get into the active business. You're like, okay, I can make $5,000 a month, or I can make $100,000 this month.
Yeah. The one that really stuck with me was like where I would say like I had my big light bulb moment. I know we just ripped on David Green, but his Burr book, when he, at the very beginning of it, he has a section where he talks about when you buy it at a discount and then you refinance all your money out and like, this is what your return actually is on day one. I was like, you can do that? Because up to that point, I had only looked at like houses on the market. And I was like everyone else where I'm like, well, the house is up for $300,000. If I get it for $280,000, that's a discount. That's great. Yeah. No, I need to get that bitch for $200,000. And then once I understood that, that's ultimately what took me to wholesaling. And that's when I learned to create that real value. But you can't do that with anything else.
No.
Right? Like not at like the same sort of pace or like there isn't like the same marketplace that just like exists out there. You can technically buy anything at a discount, but not in such like a established, sophisticated industry.
I remember thinking in college that I was like, man, our rent combined is like $2,000 a month to this landlord, but he paid $200,000. It'd take me a long time to get my money back, and like not understanding a single aspect of the leverage piece or refinancing later on or getting some of that money back. So it just shows how naive a lot of people start. And to that end, Alex, I'd like your opinion on this, and I guess Mike too, but coming from a healthcare, quote unquote, white collar background, if I told some of the colleagues, my old colleagues, what I do now, they'd be like, you left pharmacy to go walk shit houses in some ghetto ass areas. And I'm like, yeah. And so I don't know. I think it takes a special kind of person, not to like, flatter myself, but like just to leave that cushiness and intention for a better life and for financial success.
I mean, I was in engineering, right? Like it's not that different from pharmacy. And like, I remember when I quit my job at Boeing, it was funny. There was this guy that he was my occasional like cube mate, but he switched offices. So I don't see him so often. I hadn't seen him for a little bit, but the fruit of our conversation was always, how much does it fucking suck to work here? That it was such like a negative, toxic thing. And I had literally gone in. It was like 6:30 in the morning. I just quit. I'm sitting meeting with my boss first thing to quit. It was a Friday. I'm walking out and I see him and he sees me and he goes, oh, get in trouble with Rick today? That was my boss's name. And I was like, no, actually I just quit. And he laughed. He thought I was kidding. And I was like, no, seriously. Nice. He's like, really? It's like, what do you mean? He's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm moving to Spokane. I got a different job out here. I was like, yeah, I just can't do this, dude. Like, this is a horrible place to work. And he goes, well, man, I would totally do that, but I'm just too invested here. Like, I'd never be able to start somewhere else, talking about 401k. He had a pension, all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, that's sad, dude, but you're right. And I guarantee you that he's probably still there now, 10 years later, right? He was probably in his 40s. I guarantee he's still there, still miserable, still has another young new employee that he just talks about how much working there sucks every single day. And I would also bet that he would look at what I'm doing right now and he'd be like, well, that's risky. You could lose it all tomorrow.
Yeah.
Economy,
Yep.
But Alex, I'm sure you faced the same thing though, at least somewhat similar.
Yeah, man. I just left my job a year ago. It's been pretty recent, that Kaiser job I had. It was a cushy job. It was a golden handcuffs. That's what everyone called it there. We had great benefits, a great retirement, great pay for physical therapy. And when I told people I was leaving, they looked at me like, what the hell are you doing? Mm-hmm. It wasn't that long ago that this was your dream job. This is what you wanted. And you wanted to just work your way up the ladder over there and be a physical therapist.
And hundreds of thousands of dollars of schooling and time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Student loans up the ass. Absolutely.
People don't understand that though. I think that where it really gets you is, like you said, it's the debt piece and then the sunk cost that people have getting into those kind of careers, right? Like I know in an engineering piece, that's a big part of it, is because when you go to school for engineering, you are so focused in school, you kind of miss out on a lot of college stuff because it is a hard degree to get. Then you get into like these very specific jobs that don't really translate to anything else. And then so when you leave, you kind of are having to reset regardless. I mean, healthcare, I would say, is somewhat similar to that, right? And a lot of it, the education's even longer. So I think that people, they look in the rearview mirror and they're saying, well, I really wish I hadn't done that. But because I did, I feel like I need to continue forward with what I have been doing in the career path.
Yeah, definitely sunk cost bias. But all three of us, at least I feel like, if we wanted to go back to our W-2 jobs, we could probably do it within a month's time.
That's what I was going to say too.
I couldn't. I'm too far removed. I don't have any of the relevant stuff anymore.
So if you applied for an engineering job, you don't think you could get another engineering job?
No, I don't.
Now, I would be worried about my patient's sake if I got another pharmacist job. I would definitely have to study and re-up my education levels. But I think I could get another job.
If I wanted to go back into that field, I would be better off going and applying for like a business manager or like an exec job. Right? Like something at like a higher level, because I bet I could get that because I've run a company now for 6 years. My engineering stuff, I don't need like licensing or anything for that, but I'm so far removed from that field, I wouldn't have any relevant experience anymore. I'm not up to speed with like the new rules and regulations, like code changes, stuff like that. Also too, you don't make dick as an engineer anymore, thanks to ChatGPT coming out. And then also the massive oversupply of engineers that came out of college like shortly after me. Because like when I first started applying for jobs in 2013, there's a shortage of engineers, right? And so it was so easy to get a job. In the 10 years after that, there became a massive surplus. because everyone pushed their kids into engineering hearing that. And so now there's so many of them out there that they can't find jobs anywhere. No one wants to hire them. If you do get hired, you're making like $55,000 a year. Making less than I got hired in at back, 12 plus years ago.
Inflation adjusted, that's a terrible number.
That's a terrible number,
Right.
dude, but that's the truth. And it's a weird sort of thing to like think about. But like, I would say if you've been an entrepreneur for a while, unless you have something that's super specialized, like in medicine, you will eventually outgrow that previous opportunity if you ever needed to fall back on it. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would agree with that statement.
Because the thing is too, that's kind of independent if you're successful or not, right? You can be unsuccessful for 7 years trying to build your own business and then be like, well, I guess I got to go back to the coal mines now. And they're going to be like, well, it better be an actual coal mine because you're not working anywhere you used to work.
Yeah. Dylan, I have no doubt you would get a job. I have no doubt that I would still get a job at this point. Like the only thing that's been they're saying that we're losing jobs like crazy, but the only industry that's continuing to add jobs is healthcare right now at this point. And I have no doubt that we would be able to get a job at this point. But would we want to go back? Absolutely not. Like I've tasted freedom now and, damn, does it taste good.
Well, that's the other thing too, is you learn relatively quickly that you can make like enough money to get by.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And sure, you're not going to be wealthy. You're not going to be saving for retirement or whatever. But also too, when you're working for yourself, you really only need like 1 or 2 really good years. And it makes up for all the 10, 15 years where you were kind of scraping by if you needed to. Right. Like in the GoBundance group that Dylan and I are in, they regularly do this, like what's called 7 to 8. And it's these presentations. Somebody talks about what they did to go from 7-figure to 8-figure net worth. And in almost every single one, there is some kind of like massive event that happens in 1 year where they make the vast majority of their wealth. That can be an economic event like 2021. They owned a bunch of properties and stuff just exploded in value. It can be a sale of a company where they were like paying this with 150 grand a year and then they sold the company for 15 million bucks, whatever. There's always something. The only times you see really linear growth is when the guy's like 70 years old and he's just been nose to the grindstone, paying himself a decent wage out of his company for 40 years, right? But if it's anyone that's like younger population, they've almost always had a massive increase, but the years up to that are usually very rarely like incredibly fruitful.
And it's usually, I would just add to that, it's usually like a decade plus of just nose to the grind. And then it's a hockey stick.
Totally. Right. Or it's not even a freaking hockey stick. Sometimes it's like a freaking, was it like a stalagmite, right? It's just like straight up like in a fucking cave. So Alex, to kind of round out this conversation, so like with what you know now, what's your advice for like other newbies that are trying to get into this space to cut through like all the influencer sort of guru noise that they're pitched every single day without their knowledge?
Yeah. So I think the big first one is you're not going to be able to do this without doing the hard work. You're going to have to put in the hours regardless. There's no system. There's nothing that's going to make this easy to where you don't have to do a ton of work. It's a lot of work. And
what do you think that work is, like specifically?
So basically getting on the phone. So you need to talk to property owners. I think that's been the thing we were lacking is we would wait for leads to come in, but I wasn't proactive in the aspect of going out and finding my own leads, getting on the phones early and trying to, just build my day by talking to more and more folks. I think the more folks you talk to, the better you're going to get at your sales. And by sheer volume alone, you're just going to stumble into a deal. If you do enough volume, you're going to get a deal. It's just, you have to actually put in the work and consistently too. That was a big issue early on too, is I would start cold calling and then be going well for a week or two and then falling off because of some other life event. But now I'm just making it basically every day I have to be on the phones, cold calling, prospecting myself, and then calling my leads is how I'm kind of setting everything up. You're not going to do well by avoiding the hard work.
For sure. And so if you look at the hard work piece, what about if somebody has 4 kids, full-time job, they're focused on, their hobbies, whatever else? What is that person supposed to do?
Yeah, man. When I was working full time, it was one of those where I don't think I was going to get as much traction as we're getting now because now I'm fully in the business. They can still be successful. It might take longer like it did with me right now. I'm not by no means am I saying we're super successful yet, but now that I'm able to put in my full effort into our business and I'm all the way in our business, we have taken off considerably compared to the year prior. I'm going to say this and I'm going to keep the revenue numbers out of it because I want to. we've 10x'd our revenue. Either that means we had a really bad first year or we had a really great this year. I'm not going to tell you guys which one it is, but yeah, so you have to be all into it. And if you are part-time, it's going to take longer, but you're going to lose out on the deals to the folks that are full-time and doing this nonstop every day.
Yeah. I think you're too kind. I would say that the people that are part-time, they will never be successful over a long-term time horizon.
Sure.
They might have a successful month or a successful quarter. If you look at it over like a year or several years, they will always fail. 100%. I don't think that there is a way that you can do any business endeavor truly part-time without having a period of your time where you are fully invested in it and nothing else. You just can't build the base. It's just not physically possible to make real money. If you want to make like $10,000, $20,000 a year extra, totally different. If you want to make like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, make a full-time wage, like become actually wealthy, you have to be full-time into it.
I'd agree. Congrats on going from $300 to $3,000.
There we go. There we go.
It's your 10x. Yeah, 300 in revenue to 3,000 revenue. I would say with 30 to 300. Yeah. I increased my revenue. I started picking up extra Uber shifts on Friday night.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, Alex, buddy, thanks for hopping on with us, man.
Yeah, of course.
Anything else to add before we head out, guys?
To round out that last piece, I had a very successful mentor one time, and everyone gets wrapped up in cash on cash, ROIs, all this kind of stuff. You don't live in a percentage-based world. You live in a nominal world. So even if it's a 100x return, but it's on $10, no one gives a shit, right? Actually, look at your business from how much money you are actually making. And I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely, dude. I would much rather have 8% of $10 million than 100% of $1,000.
There you go.
Yeah. So, perfect. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
See ya.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you want more from us, you can shoot us a follow on Instagram. I am at Mike_invest. Dan is at InvestorMan Dan, and Dylan is at Dylan_does_deals. Shoot us a follow and send us a DM to let us know what you think of the show.